Hello, everybody. I am Zenith Rule, and welcome back to the Disney Debate, where Kat Mac, Y2 Staller, and I talk about Disney films and anything else Disney related that we want to talk about. And for once, we actually have the whole gang back together again to talk about a film that is a classic Disney film. But before we get into what this movie is, Kat, how's it going?
What? What? Are we recording? Oh, sorry.
I'm
Sleepy.
sorry, Kat. You're not allowed to sleep through the recording. We're gonna have to ask you to leave.
Aw, man. Yeah, well, I curse your house and I make thorns sprout all over the place. So take that. But, yeah, to to answer your question that I heard while I was sleeping somehow, I'm doing pretty good. I'm excited that we've gotten to Sleeping Beauty. To be honest, it's not one of my top films, but it's still one I fondly remember, if only for, like, the villain and the kick-ass action scene at the end. So, yeah, I'm excited. Eee.
And how's it going there, Mr. E-Rock? Rock to the drop, Rock, Eric?
It's funny because before we recorded, I actually just woke up from a nap about half an hour ago. So,
Oh, no.
so I literally was asleep.
This film gave us all the itis. Nah, not really. I wouldn't sleep through this film.
No,
It's too pretty looking. And the songs are great.
yeah, really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so with that out of the way, let's talk about this film that you probably have guessed by the title. We're going to be talking about Sleeping Beauty today, which is one of the classic Disney films. Um, but at the same time, I find this to be one of Disney's weaker fairy tale films. For a couple different reasons. There's a lot to like about Sleeping Beauty, but it doesn't really have the same appeal to me as other Disney films. So, Kat, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Sleeping Beauty is?
Well, Sleeping Beauty, as most of you know, is like one of the quintessential fairy tales from Brothers Grimm. It's, again, the quintessential film of a sleeping princess being awoken by a handsome prince. Uh, this movie, they based on the ballet version. Of course, they had to update it a lot and make it a little bit more exciting. In terms of Disney history, this is the third feature-length fairy tale-based film by Disney. It's also, I believe, one of their most expensively made at the time, and not to mention very overly detailed. And like that is like an understatement. Like this movie, like this movie is known for two big things. One is its incredibly detailed, incredibly unique artwork, and the other is for its music. Both the ballet's music by Tchaikovsky, as well as the songs made up for the movie. They said it was a very, even though it kind of was, it underperformed at the time and it wasn't really received as well as the first two, it has actually gained a lot of relevance in time over the years and actually is one of the big staples for Disney. So this is definitely a very important film, and it is preserved for a reason.
Yeah, I'm not going to deny its historical impact because Sleeping Beauty itself has a lot going for it, and we're going to get into that. But there are some faults that I will talk about as well. For the most part, Sleeping Beauty is a very simple story. I think even more simple than Snow White, where you have this villain who was not invited to a party, and therefore, because she was not invited to a party, because obviously she's evil, she places a curse on the child of the king and queen of a kingdom, and it kind of goes from there. The curse was supposed to be that on the 16th birthday of this person, they would prick their finger on a spindle and die, which is kind of interesting because, like, wouldn't she just want to kill the person right away? No, she's gonna make the people suffer by having them love this child and then have it taken away, which that's even more evil now that I think about it. But because the three fairies are kind, they change this curse instead of her dying by pricking her finger on a spindle, she'll just fall into a deep sleep. And the majority of the film is them trying to break this curse and avoid this curse in general.
Yeah, this is as basic a fairy tale story as you can get. Like I said, they do add a few different elements of their own, like, for instance, the three fairies, and of course, Maleficent, the mother of all bad guys. But yeah, it is, like you said, it is very straightforward. And of course, it follows child logic. It's it's like let's not invite this clearly evil person to our child's christening because we know they're gonna fuck shit up. And of course, the person's like, they didn't invite me. Well, I'm gonna go fuck shit up. So yeah, it's like an unavoidable situation. And frankly, they would have been better off just inviting no magical beings and just level the playing field, in my opinion. But whatever, we wouldn't have a story if that was the case.
Yeah, and it's also a very incredibly petty reason for a story to begin. Like, oh, you didn't invite me to a party. I'm going to curse your child. Like,
why don't you just curse the parents? Like, why do you make the child suffer?
Exactly. Like, Maleficent is a great villain, and we'll get to her, but the reasoning for this entire story is kind of weak.
To be fair, it's like that in pretty much all Disney and fairy tale based films. Again, child logic. But like I said,
it's more based on emotion.
Yeah, but I mean, it's based on, like, this is more about the journey toward the the end game as opposed to the reason for it all. Because if that was the case, then there'd be no fairy tale. But yeah, I gotta say, rewatching this again, there was a lot of holes and flaws that I hadn't noticed as a kid. Like, of course, they have the typical, oh, she'll prick her finger and die when she's 16, and of course the fairies change that she just falls asleep. But then afterwards, it's like everybody starts developing these really elaborate plans in order to keep her alive till then. And I'm just, like, thinking to myself, wait, why do they have to, why do they have to make these plans to hide her away and to burn the spindles and to go through all this if they know that she's not going to die till she's 16? And also, why is Maleficent apparently going out of her way to look for the child to kill her even though she cursed her to die at 16? That stuff doesn't make sense to me.
Although the curse was altered because she originally wanted her to die, but instead she's just going to fall asleep.
But she doesn't know that.
Sorry?
Maleficent doesn't know that, though.
But yet but yet later in the film, when she's out, like later on when she captures the prince, and and explains that she's gonna keep him alive in the dungeon until for 100 years. Like, at that point, all of a sudden she knows.
Yeah, that's a plot hole right there. Like, how did she know that?
That's very weird.
She must have known.
I mean, then again,
at some point,
the three fairies did say that she knows everything, apparently. So apparently she knew that one of them would try to undo her curse. So.
But if she knows everything, how did she not know that Aurora was in the cottage?
Yeah, good point.
Or that her henchmen were searching for 16 years for a baby?
Yeah.
It's so hard to find good help these days.
This is what happens when you shop at Discount Henchman's R Us.
I think my major problem with the film, story-wise, aside from all these plot holes, and these are legit plot holes, but there's a lot of lulls to the film. Like, aside from the beginning when Maleficent comes, like the majority of like the second act is just nothing really happening. Like, we get introduced to Aurora, she goes and does stuff, and then the fairies do stuff, but there's no real tension until Maleficent comes back in later on in the film. And then there's yet another lull when we go to the king's side and they're just having a toast to everything and they're planning the wedding. Like, this, there's a lot of things not happening in like various parts of the film, and I find it very uninteresting at times. Like, I watched it and I enjoyed it, and I'm not gonna say it's as boring as some of the live action films we've seen, but I'm just like, when is the cool villain gonna come back? Like, I like her.
To be fair, they did have to pad out a story that in full is like 2 to 5 pages long. So the fact that they were able to do that, like, is already impressive in and of itself. But I do get what you're saying, though. There are some parts that kind of meander about, but this is Disney. They gotta have their, talking, singing animals and side characters doing goofy shit. So it is kind of, like, expected at this point.
So I think we can agree that the story has its problems, more so than some of the other fairy tales that we've talked about. But I think another really major problem kind of lies with the main characters. Aurora and the prince don't have any personality, and they barely have any lines.
Yeah, they are pretty much there just as plot devices. It's like, okay, here's our guy, here's our girl. We got to get them together somehow, but let's make the other side characters basically do all the work. And boy, do they do everything.
And like, there is an interesting scene where we see Aurora like dancing with animals, but I think another problem lies with the fact that we're introduced to Aurora for the most part when she's an adult, and we never really have a chance to get to know her, and then all of a sudden she's dancing with animals, and it's a very abrupt introduction to her as a character, where you can see that they were trying to say that she's a little bit like a Snow White or Cinderella, where she has these animal friends and she does these things, but it never fleshes this stuff out.
I mean, to be fair, there's not really much to know about her that's relevant to the story. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, what was it? I think they said that in total, Aurora has, was it 17 lines in the entire movie? And she's asleep for half of it.
Yeah, it's like, I get I get exactly what they were going for, but what I would have liked is if maybe they just took out a lot of the stuff before we see Aurora and we see the fairies raising her. Give us some time with the fairies and with Aurora to get to know her a little bit more and like her. I don't know. What do you think, Eric?
I always felt over the years that the movie was never about Aurora. It felt more like it was about the fairies trying to protect Aurora from Maleficent. And because much of the movie is focused on them. Because we see the fairies, talking about their elaborate plan of protecting Aurora, and then we see them, in the cottage, and we get some time with them, talk about prepping stuff for Aurora's 16th birthday, and then later on, they go in and they take her back to the castle, and everything. Basically, much of the story is basically centered around the fairies and then protecting Aurora. I never felt Aurora was really a main character per se. I mean, yeah, she's the main focus, but not necessary. But like Kat was saying, more of a plot device, not necessarily, not necessarily not necessarily a like the main character that we spend time with this character and we learn about it, but just more. It's just more or less just the fairies and it's their story more or less.
I can see that. I can definitely see why you'd say that. Since the prince kind of comes in out of nowhere, he's only in a very small part. He's only in a very small part of the film. Aurora is only in a small part of the film. They don't really have a lot of speaking lines. So yeah, the focus is on the fairies, and the fairies are good characters. They're funny. They're interesting. They do stuff. They're kind of the reason why a lot of these things happen, though, because it's their plans that, I think it was initially their plan to take Aurora out, and the king agrees with it, but I'm like, then why destroy the spindles in the first place?
Yeah,
And
way to go. Your entire kingdom's gonna be naked now, just because you didn't think to oh yeah, maybe I should send my daughter away instead of burning everything.
let us hurt the economy and then have the fairies decide this. I'm like, okay. But the fairies are also the reason why Maleficent finds out that they're in this cottage, because they're having a magic battle over what color the dress is supposed to be. And I'm just like, you plugged up every hole except for the chimney? Like, really? Like, come on, girls. Like, you're smarter than this, and we have seen that they're smarter than this, but
It's like, okay, we got these 3 strong female leads who are controlling everything and have strong personalities and everything, and what do? They mess everything up by fighting over the color of a dress. Wow. By the way, this actually mimics a real-life argument that the animators had between themselves, because they literally could not agree on what color to make her dress, so they just wrote that into the script. I think that's funny.
It's funny. I really like the scene, and it comes back in various different parts of the film. So yeah, that's really funny, but it also is how the Crow and Maleficent finds out about the fairies. So it's like, you guys kind of screwed yourselves over.
To be fair, it's mostly Flora's fault. She's one of the most passive-aggressive characters I've ever seen. She acts all nice, and she's the leader of the group and everything, but then at the same time, she's apparently has it out for Merryweather. She's always subtly insulting her or doing it in a cheerful manner, and it's wow, you are a bitch.
That dress looks horrible. That's because it's on you, dear.
It's bitch.
So we've talked briefly about the main characters. We talked a little bit about the prince, but let's talk about the main draw of this film, and that's Maleficent.
And all the fires of hell!
Maleficent is a timeless villain.
Hell yeah.
She refers herself as the mistress of all evil, and you can believe it from her design.
Oh my god, it is such a badass design. It is so damn cool. I think they said they based her cloak on, I think they said a Greek character where their cloak was apparently made of fire. So, and then they just added the horns because they're well, she's supposed to be evil, so let's just give her horns just to make it much more apparent.
But it's not just the horns. She has these scales on the back of her head, and she has this long staff with a green ball at the end. She has a crow familiar, and she just has a commanding presence. Just the way she's drawn, and the fact that Lady Tremaine reprises her vocal role as Maleficent. It really is a perfect casting choice, and she sells every second of it.
Yeah.
And while she has some very unimpressive and stupid minions, she herself whenever she's in action, she gets shit done. And she is her plans are so evil. Like, we've talked about how she wanted to have them wait till the 16th birthday, then have their daughter being lost because of the snub. But also, like, her plan with the prince of having him wait until he's aged and decrepit and then allowing true love to win. I'm like, that is evil.
That is deliciously evil, and I love it. I just love it how, like, she's like, for the first time in 16 years, I can sleep easy, knowing that I've screwed over this girl and this guy who did absolutely nothing to me at all. I'm like, wow. Yeah, I totally love Maleficent, and I gotta say, I kind of wish she was in a different movie. Like, I would have loved to see her movie with, like, more action and more of a drawn out battle at the end, like her using her powers more, maybe like carrying out a much more calculated scheme, like basically, more than what she did in the movie. Like, what she did was great, but just more of it. Like, I know, like, there's no Sleeping Beauty sequels or anything, but if they had made one and found a way to bring her back, I would be so all over that. Because I would
well,
just
that's
love
what
to
we
see...
have Kingdom Hearts for.
Yeah, I mean, she has her moments, but I felt even there she could have done better. They definitely could have done more with her because she has so much potential. Because she is just such a cool bad guy. And granted, yes, they made that movie, but yeah, we'll get into that another time.
We'll get to that another time. What do you think, Eric?
I know, I was gonna say, funny you should mention all these things, because, well, anyway, I always liked Maleficent as I like her style of villainy as more like a manipulator. Like, she manipulates things. She doesn't like go out just flat out like attacks them. She messes with you, and I like that. Like, it get like not to the point where it gets inside your head, but just enough just to do damage. Like, especially with, locking the prince up in the dungeon for 100 years. So it's like, okay, I know that my plan of originally killing Aurora didn't work, but you know what? I'm going to do the next best thing, which is I'm going to lock you up here for 100 years, where basically you'll be too old to even do anything with her. Mm-hmm. So it's like, haha.
Or he kisses her, she wakes up and yes. He dies. How cruel would that be?
That'd be the cherry on top.
I think what works about Maleficent is she retroactively makes the prince a better character, because if Maleficent hadn't done everything she did, the prince wouldn't have that battle at the end, the thing that really redeems him as a character, because other than that, he does nothing.
Honestly, even in the ending battle, he really doesn't do anything either, because the fairies basically hold his hand throughout that entire climax. Like, even though they're the ones that rescue him, they're the ones that give him the sword and the shield, they're the ones that take all the obstacles out of his way, that gave him the power to take down Maleficent. Like, honestly, it was pretty much all them. He was kind of like their bigger sized puppet just to do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, they turn they turn arrows into flowers, and they turn something else into fucking bubbles. Fucking bubbles. And then they turn like, I think it was like a magma or like boiling oil into like just a rainbow or something like that.
It's the rainbow.
Imagination.
Like, yeah, the fairies are the ones who do most of the work. And so, yeah, even then, the prince is still a little bit lackluster, unfortunately. In fact, it's their spell that allows the sword to kill Maleficent, because...
Which is such a damn cop-out. That is such bullshit.
That's a Deus Ex Machina fairy right there.
Pretty much. Like, I get that the dragon's weakness is its soft underbelly, but come on. Like, this is the dragon that can do magic. like who could change into different forms if she wanted to, and she gets taken down by a fucking Deus Ex magic sword. It's not fair. It's totally not fair. It's like bullshit.
And there lies the problem why it would be hard to kind of do a Sleeping Beauty too. And getting back to what you were saying about if they were to do a sequel, it's fun. It's funny because even with all of the Disney sequels that they have pumped out over the years to pretty much all of their classic stuff, you would think they would have touched Sleeping Beauty because, as far as I can recall, there is no Sleeping Beauty 2, as far as I know. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong on this.
I think the reason why they didn't do it, though, is the same reason why they never did a Snow White 2, because their main villain, the one that was like the major crux of the film, is dead.
Yeah, but let's be fair, that's never stopped other movies from, with crappy sequels from being made. You know, villains just suddenly coming back with no explanation. I mean, heck, Hook was supposed to be dead at the end of Peter Pan, and yet he comes back in the sequel. So, like I said, all you need is to not actually see the death or to magic it away somehow, and you can get your main villain back. Like, it's not outside the realm of possibility. And to answer your question, yeah, there was no actual sequel to Sleeping Beauty. However, there was a short on the Disney Princess collection. Like, it was like the first time they ever tried to do a short story with Aurora, because usually they do it with like Jasmine, Ariel, Belle, and all that. But they tried doing it with Aurora, but it was like one of those simple stories, like where she's left in charge of the castle for the first time ever, and she's unsure of herself, so she borrows one of the fairy's magic wands to help her out.
Cough,
and she ends
Cinderella 2, cough.
Yeah, it's pretty much like that, except she has magic and she goes a bit haywire with it. And then she learns a lesson. Yeah, it's nothing. Like, you would think that now that they put Aurora in like her own like short where she's actually the focus, they'd actually, give her some character or some development or something. Nope. She's as bland as ever. Like, nothing's changed.
Like you do.
And that's why she
Like
doesn't
you do.
have any of her own TV shows or anything like that.
She's not an interesting main character, and unless it was about the fairies, I don't see it working.
She's a Barbie doll. That's what she is. She's a Barbie doll.
She pretty much is. She's like what people think of the Disney princesses, even though like Cinderella and Snow White actually kind of had character.
Like, honestly, I can imagine like the whole premise for the story is that the three fairies are each playing with dolls representing the characters, and they're like pretty much acting it all out, but they're saying, and then the fairies came to the rescue and they saved Aurora and they helped the prince slay the dragon and they helped them live happily ever after. Like, that's kind of how I see this movie. Like, the fairies glorifying themselves into helping, being the heroes of this story, even though not really. So, yeah, they're kind of like the good guys, the bad guys, the manipulators, and the pretty much the driving force of the entire movie.
So, we've talked about the story and the characters. The visuals, I think, deserve attention, though, because visually this is a very stunning film. It's so different from anything we've seen from Disney before, and the only thing that I can think of that's kind of similar is Hercules a little bit, because it's kind of like it's kind of the same kind of tapestry look to it, but it's a visually interesting film, and the character designs are something that I haven't seen quite like it before or since.
Well, I think their art style for that one in particular, for Sleeping Beauty, is that you're right, it does kind of have that tapestry look to it, kind of like with Hercules, but it's more in respective to their own time period. For Sleeping Beauty, it's more the Middle Ages, whereas with Hercules, it was more it was ancient Greece. So here with Sleeping Beauty, it's definitely that Middle Ages like tapestry look to it, and It's really quite beautiful. If you really appreciate that sense of art style, and it works very well here. I also want to add real quick about the animation. In the Sleeping Beauty special edition DVD, there's a documentary about the making of it, and for like the characters and how they move, what they did was they got like the actual voice actors that were doing the roles actually physically act out the movements, and the animators, and they show footage of this in the documentary where you have the actors and they're all dressed in costume and they're fully acting out their lines and the movements, and the animators are all in the same room and they're all drawing closely how they're moving about and relaying that on paper, all hand drawn. And in the documentary they show like they'll cut like not quite side by side but like one after the other of how the animation relays to the actors, and how close and how almost exact it is on how it was like almost like a 1-to-1. And it's just very impressive even to this day, because I mean it's all hand drawn nowadays. I mean everything is done with computers. Even hand drawn stuff is just it's just a pen on a tablet. But back then, when they didn't have that kind of technology, and to do that just by pen and paper, it's amazing. It's just incredible how they were able to pull that off.
Yeah, they didn't even use rotoscope. You'd think they would do that, but no, they didn't use that at all, which is really impressive.
This is one of Disney's most expensive films at the time, and yeah, it shows. Especially because, like, if you look at like just the beginning, each individual horse's head is moving up and down differently, and they're all acting differently. It just, they pay so much attention to detail with this art style that must have been incredibly hard to do. So I have the utmost respect for that. In terms of music, the music is, you've heard it before from Tchaikovsky. It's like all from that ballet, and it's very, very good. But the main one that I wanted to talk about was Once Upon a Dream, because that's Disney and not Tchaikovsky. Once Upon a Dream is... I kind of have mixed feelings on it. On the one hand, it is very memorable. Once I heard it, you'd be humming it for a while, but it doesn't have a lot of substance to it. It's just, and at the same time, it's kind of silly that, she meets the prince with the song, and the only reason why she keeps hanging out with him is because he's like, oh, we met once upon a dream. Like, no, you're strangers. You haven't met at all. Like, the song is advocating talking to strangers, and I don't know if that's the best message for young girls at the time.
Yeah, I have to agree. It's kind of like When You Wish Upon a Star, in that, the message is pure and hopeful, but at the same time, realistically, it's not a good thing to follow. I still do love the song very much. It's not the most singable thing just because it's so, high pitched at points, but yeah, in terms of the message, yeah, it's like, yeah, I met you in a dream, so clearly I know you very well, and I'm gonna start a lifelong relationship with you. Yeah, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, like, even if you did have a dream, which we didn't see, even if we did have this dream established, it's still, like, we need time for these characters to get to know each other, and this song is not an adequate way for these characters to get to know each other. It's cute seeing the owl dancing in his clothes, but that's about it. It's a good song with kind of a mixed message that I don't think has aged very well. Much in the same way of Sally's song from The Nightmare Before Christmas, where it's on its own, it's fine, but in the context of time, in the context of the rest of the film, I don't think it works.
Yeah, you know what I found weird? Like, even though the fairies are really the main focus of the film, they don't have a song. None of them.
And the villain never gets a song either.
Yeah, the only ones that sing is Aurora, the prince, and their dads. Which I
Yeah,
guess.
the other song is Scumps, which is an enjoyable song. Which it's basically them toasting the marriage of their children, and their bard or jester, whatever he
Minstrel.
is getting drunk. Their minstrel rather is getting drunk, and yeah, they're drinking wine and they're saying scumps, scumps, scums,
Oh, I
and I'm just like, it's kind of a song and kind of not, because it's sung, but it's really, it's not exactly the most substantial song in the film.
It's not. It's
We're
just
also
one of those cute little drunk songs. You know, it's not memorable, but it's like amusing nonetheless.
We're also excluding all the songs that I guess I want to say the chorus sings. You know, like the opening song about everyone going to meet the new princess, or when the fairies start putting everybody to sleep.
Yeah,
I
those.
mean, there's those songs also.
They're okay. I mean,
Yeah.
they do a decent job with their atmosphere and they're sung well. It's just they fall in a trapping that I found a lot watching a lot of these old Disney films, where the chorus, melody wise, they're fine, but together they just don't stand out. Every single chorus song usually sounds the same. If you've seen one Disney opening where there's a chorus singing, it kind of sounds exactly the same as another Disney chorus opening.
Pretty much. There's no like 3-part harmony, and a lot of it kind of follows the same segment of notes. Like, yeah, like given all the opening numbers we've heard with like the other films we've watched, yeah, a lot of them kind of blend into each other, which is rather unfortunate. Because it's like you got this chorus, you can do anything with them, but you make them sing basically the same generic song over and over. It's kind of disappointing.
It's unfortunate, but I think a lot of that is a product of the times, because back then, I guess that's what music was doing in films. I don't know. I'm not a historian. So, I mean, this is what we've just seen over the course of almost 50 films. Wow.
Wow, has it been that long?
Guys, speaking of which, the next episode is our 50th episode.
Woohoo!
50 films. 50.
Scumps!
Scums. Scums.
A toast to
Scums.
the debate. We've made it this far. Isn't that great?
But before we get into that, let's give our final thoughts on this film. Eric, why don't you start us off? What is your final thoughts on Sleeping Beauty as a whole?
As I've gotten older and have gone back and watching some of this stuff that I've grown up, especially with Sleeping Beauty, because this is actually my sister's favorite animated Disney animated movie. She has a favorite live action, which we will get to, and she has a favorite animated, which is this one. But I can understand that the film, from a story and character development perspective, hasn't really aged well, but it does kind of make up for it in animation. It does make up for it in music, and also Maleficent is awesome. In fact, so awesome they made a movie about her, which we will get to.
Don't remind us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna begin.
But if I won't, who will?
Kat, what are your final thoughts on Sleeping Beauty before we strangle Eric for reminding us about Maleficent?
Yes. Well, pretty much my opinions are the same as his, in that, yeah, it's definitely a a Disney classic. It hasn't really aged well. The animation, music are, fabulous, and of course Maleficent's the best. Like I said, it still doesn't really crack one of my top tens or anything like that. Like, I'll watch it, but it's not something I eagerly watch. Like, if I had my way, I'd just skip to the climax every single time and just keep it at that. But I do think it, like, in terms of like historical relevance, in terms of its artwork, and just, just for what they did with it, based on the fact that it was such a short story and they made it to be as grand as it was, like, in it, the film in and of itself is an achievement. So I definitely say, it is a film worth watching, and especially if you want to, like, introduce your kids to, like, the typical fairy tale story. Definitely watch it.
I'm going to have to agree, because while it does have its problems, I think historically this is a very relevant film. It does a lot of things that it is supposed to. It has a very good villain. It sets up the story quite well. Animation, it is animation wise, it is brilliant. And watching it, I didn't have a problem watching it because of the way it looked. Like, it's, even though there's a lull in the second and some of the third act, it is very pleasant to watch. And the fairies are fun and funny, and even though it has, like, a lot of faults, I still have a fun time watching it. And I'm not glad, I don't regret seeing it again. I think it's one that I'm happy to see more than one time, and I'm probably going to see it again in the future, but I do think that it hasn't aged as well as other Disney films that we've seen. And it's a Disney classic that every Disney fan should see, but see it with a grain of salt that not everything has aged to the point where it's still a fantastic film.
Yeah,
But
and
with
keep
that
in mind, this
said,
is still the age of love at first sight and romance in 5 minutes or less. So if you're going in expecting, like, some whirlwind romance, you're going to be disappointed.
yeah. But with all of that said, we had a fun time with Sleeping Beauty, much more fun than we've had for the previous live-action films. Like, dear God, come on, guys. Live action, you can do this. I know you can do this, Disney. But anyway, I am Zenith Rule.
I am Kat Macberrie.
I'm Y2 Staller.
And next time is our 50th episode. We just want to thank you all for watching us for this long, for 49 episodes up until the 50th. We're going to be talking about the quote-unquote prequel to Sleeping Beauty, which recently came to theaters and DVD and whatever. We're talking about Maleficent, and I haven't seen this one yet, but from everything I have heard, it is bad. So, for our 50th episode, we'll take a look at this film, and hopefully it's good. It at least won't be hard for us to find, like some older films, but hopefully it'll be good, and we'll see from there. But with all of that said, thank you guys for watching us for all this time, and we will see you next time on the Disney Debate.
TTFN, ta-ta for now. And now I go back to sleep.
And now it is time to draw on your face with magic marker.
Meh.
Now sleep!
Oh.
Thank you for watching the Media Meltdown. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more awesome videos. And if you like what you see, show your support on the Patreon page at patreon.com/Media Meltdown. See you all next time on the Media Meltdown.